Well, when it comes to the feature, I'm going to need all hands on deck. So, uh, any help I can get would be great. Of course, paid.
Today on the podcast, we have Emily Giuffré. She's an actress, director, and writer. She works in the film industry and creates short films and is working towards her own feature film. We had a great conversation about extras, locations, things that could go wrong, and all the in between. You'll love this conversation. Check it out.
I actually have a background in theater, but I had wanted to go into film production since I was a little kid. And it was actually in early 2020 that I was like, all right, 2020 is the year. I'm just going to stop putting it off. I'm going to go into the film industry. I'm going to volunteer at these film festivals. It's going to be great. Best year ever. Well, you know how that went. And film festivals were canceled, productions were postponed. It was a nightmare. But I mean, considering how other places were, because I'm in Texas, production opened up back in the summertime. And so I started volunteering as a production assistant on, if I saw, I would join all these different Facebook groups, filming in Austin and Houston and Dallas. And if I saw people posting about, hey, I need um, a DP for this production, or I need this, I would reach out to them and say, hey, do you need a production assistant? I'd love to volunteer. And generally they're always like, oh, yes, we could use another one. So I'd worked on a bunch of different productions throughout the end of 2020 and early 2021. And I'd worked on a Western back in May of 2021. So that's now 3 years ago. Wow. And those guys just really inspired me. I thought, well, I have a couple of scripts that I've written. I want to make something before the end of the year. And I had never done a film before, not of my own. So I say that ignorance isn't always bliss, but it's sometimes advantageous. So the friends that I had made throughout the past year, I said, I want to make this film. Who wants to do it with me? And we filmed, which was my very first film, Kindred Spirits. It's just finishing up in the film festival circuit and won some awards, but it was definitely an education. I say that Kindred Spirits was my film school because pre-production, I learned, is actually supposed to be miserable. Everything that could have gone wrong went wrong. I had to replace locations, actors, DPs before, the end of it all. But it all worked out in the end. And we ended up getting an Airbnb for most of where the film is shot. And I found being just completely honest with people, hey, I'm an independent filmmaker. This is extremely low budget, but I have a very professional crew. We'll be, very good to your house. And amazingly, she let us use it. And we had a couple of location changes or location moves within production. One at Cedar Park Mall, which worked as an airport, and another at a farm. And praying that it would never rain when we were outside, but we did have a lot of wind, which caused some sound problems. But and then once we wrapped, I had an editor who, once the spring came around, because we had filmed Kindred Spirits in December of 2021, we had a couple of pickups with some other actors and other locations in March, and then my editor and we got together, started editing when his father passed away, so he had to go back to Massachusetts to take care of his estate. But I had a friend come in and saved my bacon and help edit the rest of the film. So it was definitely a process. There was days where I absolutely loved it. There were days where I absolutely hated it, and I learned that's actually pretty normal, because when you're in the middle of it, you're like, oh, I can't do this, and at the end, you're like, oh, when are we doing it again, guys? So
Yeah, you almost want it again afterwards. Like
yes.
it's crazy how it's so daunting when you take it on. And I'm sure like the way you said it best. You said like, I just got my film school from this film, which is awesome because I think doing something, you're going to learn way more than just like reading about it or watching other people do it.
Yes. And, I just got back from a 3-day shoot on a show filmed here in Texas, and I was scripty for that. I'd never been scripty. I was terrified. I only knew enough about the job to know that I was too scared to take on that role, but it was with a good friend of mine who is writing and directing this show. So I called script supervisor friends of mine. It's like, okay, what do I need to be prepared for? And first day, I felt completely out of my depth. Second day, it's like, okay, I'm getting these cues that I'm hearing from the camera crew because I'm wearing headphones. Okay, I understand what that means. I need to write it all down. So I was much better prepared the second day. By third day, I was hitting my stride. And so, yeah, being on set is the best education. I could have talked to my script supervisor friend for a week, but I think it was being on set that where I finally hit my stride.
And you've only been doing this really for like 4 years, you said? And then not only that, it was during the pandemic. So half of the, you know what I mean? 2 of those years, stuff was shut down for a while. So it's like you've really progressed. And I think the main thing is it's like you're not scared to be uncomfortable. You're diving in, being an assistant. You're doing the things that you should do to get better. And a lot of people kind of don't take those steps, but that's
Well,
awesome.
thank you. I mean, for me, making something, making a movie is a serious act of faith because you're putting your faith that people are going to show up, that locations are going to, still agree to the terms, that the funding that someone promised is going to come. So it's an incredibly rewarding experience, but it just tears you apart in the process too. So when it's finished, I find that I generally am sleeping for like a week later. Can't do anything else afterwards. But it's especially with independent filming, it's I've heard someone refer to it as guerrilla filmmaking because you're wearing a lot of hats and you're trying to make a lot of things work in a short amount of time, and they can't go wrong because it's like, well, we'll get you to come back, and there aren't necessarily the funds to get actors back or DP back. And it's a lot like when I was a kid, I would borrow my dad's camcorder and film something with my siblings and my cousins. And we didn't have editing software. We didn't have anything. We just had this camcorder. So we had
rewind the tape and then
the thing is we could only do one take and it had to be perfect. Yeah. So the pressure was on, and it's not quite as bad as that, but it always feels like the pressure is on.
Yeah. How did you get funding for your first film?
I had a good friend that I met. We became friends through the process for sure, but we met in a kind of just a casual filmmaking group that would meet on Discord, once or twice a month, and we would do readings for scripts. And the guy who started it actually was real, aggressive with, let's make something. We've got all these people here in Austin, and he kind of, fell off the side of the earth. Don't know what happened to him, but this one gal that I really connected with, she was wanting to produce a short film, and I wanted to make one. So it was sort of like, let's figure it out together. And we were a match made in heaven because she's good at all the things I'm terrible at. She's good with the business side, the legal side. And there were times, I was just like, stop cramping my style, Michelle. But because of her, I mean, she's like, I'm here for you. I'm here for your vision. I'm just telling you, we need to make sure we're crossing all of our T's and dotting all of our I's. And, I couldn't have done it without her.
Yeah, you're like, why can't I have the helicopter fly over the horses? She's like, we can't afford that right now. And you're like, I want to do this cool thing. Michelle, what's going on?
I know, why? Well, here's another interesting story for y'all. So Kindred Spirits is about, it's loosely based on it's inspired by 3 different stories, true stories in my life. And so the story is about a woman in Texas and a woman in Russia who meet online for an interview. And at first, they don't really get along because they're seemingly very different. But as they get to know each other a little bit more, it turns out they have a lot in common and they become friends. And trying to style this Russian woman's room in her house was a challenge. It's like, how do I make it like Russia? And Michelle was like, before you ask, we're not going to Russia. And this was right before all this stuff with Russia and Ukraine happened. And so it was just kind of wild how when we finished, at first people were saying, maybe we shouldn't put it in film festivals. Maybe no one will like it. And I mean, it took some months to get it edited anyway. So again, another act of faith. I'm just going to put it out there, see who likes it. And it's gotten several selections, some nominations, some awards. So yeah, another act of faith of just putting it out there and hoping, it resonates with people.
And that's the thing, if you wait to find the perfect opportunity to do something like that, you might not ever see that come to fruition. Like, you basically were like, I'm going to do this thing. Hopefully people like it. If they don't, I'm going to move on to the next thing. And you were okay with that, which I think a lot of people are scared to do that. So it shows a lot of trust that you're like, I'm going to do this thing and Michelle's going to come along. We're going to make this thing a reality. I think that's tough to do in the production world.
It is tough. And if I had my way, I would have Michelle for every production. But unfortunately, that's not the case. Because I have another production that I've been in a little bit of a post-production limbo with that. We're getting there. It's just taking a lot of time. But I'd say in a lot of ways, my second film was much harder than my first. And it's a good question. Well, first off, not having Michelle as a producer, having I think I went into this way faster actually than I did with Kindred Spirits. I wrote this, whereas Kindred Spirits, I had written that script 5 years prior to filming it with pop up for AI. It's like, do you want to try AI? For Ripple Cuts, and that's the name of our office comedy. We filmed it. Kindred Spirits was filmed in small towns. Ripple Cut was filmed in downtown Houston. So there were challenges with that. We're also filming it during the hottest summer in Texas since 1903. So wow. It was, yeah.
Was that last year?
Yeah, last summer.
Yeah. I went to Austin last year with some friends, and I couldn't even go outside.
Yes.
It was so hot.
Hottest summer.
I was melting. Can't do that.
Exactly.
I'm like, I can't. How are people living here?
It was, well, I was beginning to, lose my will to live after a while. But we didn't necessarily have outside shots, but just going from one location to the next, I mean, constant retouching, and it was terrible. And it was kind of I didn't exactly have a seasoned crew. They do a lot of ad productions, which are really, really good. So this was sort of a longer production for them, but they did amazing. They did absolutely amazing. But I probably didn't spend as much time in pre-production as I did with Kindred Spirits, thinking, oh, I've got it now. I've done this before. But I feel like if you don't suffer during pre-production, you will suffer during actual production. And the reverse is better. If you can't over prepare in production, pre-production, that is. If you do over prepare, production just feels like implementation. So
I like that. Yeah, I think that's true with our stuff too. We have a producer we work with, Elena, and she makes everything seamless, because if Dan and I showed up and we had pre-planned it
would be a joke.
I mean, we've pre-planned some of our shoots and it works, yeah. But I think the production is a little wild because we didn't do as much pre-production.
And do you sometimes with Elena, because you're like,
Yeah, a little bit. I'll be like, I want to do this. And she's like, well, we don't have the time to do that. I'm like, well, what if we just not do that other thing? She's like, we have to do that other thing. And I'm like, fine, okay. Like, I want to do crazy things that don't make sense, but I think they might be cool. And sometimes we have time for it, but other times it's like, let's just stick to the plan.
Yeah,
and
she
it
keeps
usually
all
goes,
together.
yeah, it usually goes better that way. Because I'm like, well, why don't we just take an hour to do this one thing? It's like, there's no time for that in the schedule. I'm like, all right, what if we brought everybody outside across the street to do this thing? She's like, we can't. We like, they don't have time to be across the street. They have 30 minutes to do this one shot.
You need sign release
like, okay.
forms.
Yeah, exactly. I'm asking all these things. Like, what about a crane truck? It's like, well, legally, we can't do that right now here in this location. Like, can we fly a drone? No, not right here. I'm like, all right. It's all good. I mean, it definitely helps. I think before that, like when I was just planning a lot of this stuff, it was harder. Like, I think, like you said, you do as much as you can. You're like, we'll be good. I've done this before. And then you find out real fast that it doesn't matter because every production is also different. Like, I'm sure your second film was not the same setup, right? Yeah. And how is that working with actors and actresses? Because you also act. So does it help that you know some of that stuff, or does that not even matter because everybody's different?
Does it help that I know,
like, acting and like cues and that kind of thing, or does that?
Oh, for sure. It was a bit overwhelming the first day of filming Kindred Spirits. Well, I should say the day before I was overwhelmed because, I mean, I knew what we were going to be filming the next day, but then I realized because a lot of the film are these two women having an interview on a laptop. And I realized we were going to be shooting all of my conversation part, and the other actress wasn't even going to be there. And I was just going to be talking to a computer all day long. And part of me was just like, it's all going to be on me. And I'm just so not in my actor's heart right now. I'm in my director's head. And so there was this tug of war. And when we would be filming, especially the climax of the film, which is, you know, a kind of a personal, emotional thing, I was very much in my actor's heart. And then later, as, you know, I'm going over what we filmed that day, I was like, did we get that particular shot from Straight On and this? I wasn't in my director's head. And so it was, there was a lot of back and forth. It does feel a bit schizophrenic in a way. You're not, or I shouldn't say schizophrenic. The person, the actor you, and then the director you are sometimes at war with each other because when you're in your director's hat, you're just all cerebral. You're just thinking. But then you want to kind of let that go and be in your actor's heart to, you know, emote and give a performance. So, I don't think it bothered anybody else, but it bothered me at times when we needed a particular shot and I'm so much in my performance, I'm not thinking about the other stuff. But I had a fantastic DP who, you know, just did such a beautiful job. And he was great. And I allowed him, you know, it's like, give me direction, you know, if you feel that I need it. I allowed, you know, let him call cuts when he felt he needed, because it wasn't 100% on me. Or I'm in a good portion of the film, but not all of it. So if I wasn't in the shot, I was behind the camera. I was calling cues and cut and all of that. But when I was an actor, Anton and Ian, the DPs, they would be directing me, which you kind of have to. It's a collaborative effort, and they did a fantastic job, beautiful job. They have experience, so it wasn't like I hired a newbie. Michelle and I were newbies, but our DPs were not. And I think that really shows. So many people have said the film, when I've gone to festivals and there are, you know, tons and tons of short films, they all say Kindred Spirits was beautifully shot. I'm like, thank you, because I got someone who knew what they were doing.
Yeah. Do you think that's hard too? When, like, you went into this project, it's your first film. You also directed it, wrote it, and acted in it. You're like, I'm just going to do it all at once. Is that Does that seem not normal? I don't know. Like, is that like something people do where they're like, I'm going to do all the things, like all the roles? Like, I think that's a lot. That's heavy for you to take
It
on.
is heavy, and sometimes I wonder, why am I doing this to myself? But I mean, my background is acting. I can't remember if I said, but I'm a theater actor originally. I was a theater arts major in college. I acted, all through college and then years afterwards. So I'm used to live performances. I'm used to things going wrong and trying to fix them quickly. It is a different animal though, film and wearing so many hats at the same time. Uh, I guess because I wrote the story and the story was very personal to me, and I kind of feel like all three of those roles went well together, even though it was a lot. It was heavy. Um, I knew the background of the story and I had the vision for the story. So in a way, it all it's kind of seems like one role because I was driving this story and everybody else was there to help me, which is a very comforting feeling when you say to people, "Hey, I have this story. I hope you like it. Do you want to make it with me?" Of course, from the get go, I wanted to pay people. I know as independent filmmakers, people do a lot of things for free, and I'm certainly not made with money, but I wanted to make them feel it was worth their time, at least, you know, um, give them a stipend, you know, pay for their gas, give them a great lunch, that sort of thing, and be able to put it on their IMDb. But I did pay people their day rates, which um, they were nice to me, and they're like, "Well, yeah, you can do the basic 150, but I want people to have a good experience working with me because I know I'm. A lot of people said, "Well, it was a very fun set. You seem pretty, pretty chill." And I can come off that way, but inside it was definitely not.
Is your goal, or maybe not goal, but like your dreams or something, to write or direct a feature? Like, is that what you're working towards?
Yes, and you know, uh, and kind of again with your question, Sean, people said, you know, that's a lot. It's like I know it is, and but I know George Clooney and Ben Affleck and other people have done it, and they're like, "Well, you're not those guys." So I'm not trying to be those guys. That's why my film is the way it is. It's it was a simple film on the outside, and it's never quite as simple as you think it's going to be. It's never quite as cheap as you think it's going to be, but for the most part, it was a simple film. I do have a feature in mind that I'm working on right now. And again, I'll be in it. And part of the reason why I'm doing it is that I'm very impatient to get roles with other people. That's like, come on, people, I want to work. So,
Yeah, create your own
I'm
roles. I
creating
love it.
creating my own roles, creating my own stuff, and I actually got nominated for Best Actress at the International Christian Music and Film Festival, which is probably the biggest Christian film festival that there is. And it's really wild because it was like, well, I was shocked that it got selected. Then I was shocked that I was nominated because there were a lot of really good films in this. I didn't win the Best Actress nomination, but I was just shocked. We did get, however, an Audience Choice Award for the short film category, which I was very proud of. And uh, but going back to your question, Dan, sorry. Yes, I do have plans of writing a feature and starring in it. I have toyed with the idea. Do I want to give the directing reins to someone else, someone I admire and trust? Or do I just really want that? And is it a control thing or is it a vision thing? So I am wrestling with that right now.
Yeah. How hard is it to like write a script like that? Like you've already written two, but I mean, to me, it's just like I'm a terrible writer, number one, but number two, to have the idea, I don't even know. It just seems like that's very difficult to do and time consuming as well.
Yeah, usually I jot down lots and lots and lots of ideas before I try to get it in a uh, uh, in the script form and in an in a what's the word I'm looking for?
Like a
Writing
storytelling way.
storytelling
Like
way, because writing is incredibly messy. It's
Yeah.
very, very messy. And you're writing down lots of ideas and even bits of dialogue before you actually start trying to get it into a clear, concise script format. And you just have to accept that it's going to be bad 2-3 drafts in. And and you have to be open to feedback. Once I get it into a form that I'm ready to show it to people for feedback, I've already done several drafts of it. But when I give it to other people to read, I label it draft 1, which makes me look way better than really.
I love it.
Yes.
That's great.
But then
that's a good tip. Yeah, a little trick.
So there's the writing is incredibly messy, and it's like, for me, I like telling, personal, intimate stories that fit into a larger universal story. In Kindred Spirits, it's about unlikely friendships and people who are seemingly different have a lot more in common than they think. And I think that's why the story has resonated so much with people who've seen the movie. So I do tend to have that where it's like, okay, I have these very intimate moments in the story, but what is the larger story that I'm telling? So I'm constantly, it's like an accordion. I'm constantly going back and forth with the story. And then once I get that down, I start getting into the nitty gritty and the dialogue. And I guess because of my theatrical background, people that have read it are like, this is very dialogue heavy. This feels more like a play / where I say this in more economically. And so it's always good to have people you trust and who are still, committed to your vision, provide feedback, because you can get very lost in your head writing a story and you could be very married to it. And then someone comes along and is like, cut, and you're just like, no.
Right.
And then after a while, then you start slashing up more and more. Things that you thought, no, I can't kill, that's like my child. And then you're just... So it's a very interesting process, what you think you can't live without in your story, and then what you're just cutting up near the end.
Yeah, I think writing in general is like that, though. Like a lot of copywriting is like that too, where it's like, yes, you can say it like this, but people would rather read it at this concise version. These are filler words. And so that seems to be similar, where it's like, you don't need all of this dialogue. We understand that these two people are in this moment going through this conflict. Like, but I get what you're saying from like a theatrical standpoint. It's like, there's a lot more dialogue usually.
Yes. And then especially with film, sometimes, and when you get on set and you're in that moment filming, sometimes it's like, you know what, I'm just going to cut this one line right here because the look says so much more.
Got it. And so you cut stuff on location because you're like, this isn't working.
There's a filmmaker named Aaron Burns, and I went to a workshop of his at another conference, and he was saying how you honestly are making 3 different movies in development. Of course, when you're with the script and you're preparing pre-production, and then during filming, during production, there are a lot of things that might change. When you're actually in the moment and you're directing it, and it's a little bit different from the script. And then when you're in post-production in the editing room, you're, again, we actually don't need that. And just, it's like making 3 different movies. So as someone who also likes to sit in the editor room with the editor, because again, it's all about my vision. But I no, I'm very open to editors who have way better ideas than I do about how to make the scene more powerful. And usually I'm going um, with their cuts. But sometimes it's like I'm adamant. It's like, no, I'm adamant about this particular scene. But it is funny because being in a part of the whole process, even though I'm filming something that I wrote, sometimes I'm just like, what was that writer thinking? And we'll film it one way. And then when I'm in the editing chair with the editor, it's like, why did we get that shot? That was a useless waste of time. cut that out. And so it's funny because I will think of myself as a different person in those other roles.
Yeah, we get that a lot in filming. Recently, we just did a video, and we had our editor who didn't come on the shoot with us in film. And you're getting a different perspective. Me and Sean would have done the video so much different than what he did. It's the same clip, same everything, but we loved it. And we were like, oh my God, this is great, because it was such a different vision than me and Sean would have had, because we were there, we went on it, and it came out great. But same kind of thing with, like, you sitting with your editor and him having that kind of different vision, like, oh, we should do this or this, cut this out. But obviously there's some clips where you're like, no, we got to keep this in. But I definitely feel when you said that, I was like, yeah, that makes a bunch of sense.
Yeah, it's always like when you come up with the story yourself and you start like scripting. I do a little bit of that in directing, like small, like mostly commercial type stuff and marketing stuff. And when you have this idea, you, like you were saying, Emily, you like don't want it to be messed with. You're like, this is how it should be. But then, like Dan was saying, you figure out like it's helpful to have all these other minds like giving you ideas, because then you see like, oh, I never thought that way. So I think in film, it probably happens a lot when you're creating something where maybe the story goes a different direction because the producer helped, or the DP was like, this would be cool, like shot through the glass or something. Or so that it's cool. Like when you let people be a part of the experience, I think it makes the product better.
For sure. And that's definitely something I try to be mindful of. I always have an idea because I'm usually the one who goes to location and look at where we're going to be filming and think, well, this would be a cool shot from here. But then when we get there during production and the DP, I'll let him look around. If he has a better idea, we generally always go with that because he has the better eye. He's going to be looking, he's going to be setting up the light. Well, oftentimes my DP is also directing the gaffing unit because it's all kind of small production, guerrilla filmmaking.
Oh, we do a lot of that. We totally understand.
And then, this shot just looks incredibly beautiful. And when we were filming Kindred Spirits, we were at a mall, and the mall let us use the side where Sears used to be. So it was, I guess, can I say Sears?
Yeah.
But
I think so. I mean, if they send us a cease and desist, that's cool, because then they saw this podcast. Sears, if you're out there, feel free to use our podcast. Are they still in business?
I know. I don't know if they're shutting down or
well,
what.
They. Anyways,
product placement.
Yes, we were able to use this one side of the mall, and I had already staked out where we were going to shoot, and I took pictures of this whole place, and then we show up. And my DP just happened to drive from the other side. And we're all parked on this one side. And he says, hey, let's go over here. Looks way more like an airport. And the planner side of me kind of freaked out for a moment. And I was like, okay, just give me 5 minutes. Let me revisualize this. And he set up the shot. And he's like, no, it's going to be good. And we'll have the extras over here and all that. And I was like, okay, yeah, this worked. And he was 100% right. It looked way more like an airport. It was just way better. And so I want to hire people that know how to do their job. I'm
Yeah.
not, I'm definitely, yes, I do. I'm very married to my vision sometimes, but I'm not a dictator by any means. I want people to know how to do their job, do it well, and I will
Take some
defer.
initiative.
Yes, take
Yeah.
initiative, and it takes way more pressure off me. Uh, so it is that, and I think filmmaking is learning that balance between when you can compromise and when do you feel like, because I would hate to get into a film and just be like, oh, I really wish I fought for my idea. And and there were, again, for a moment I was sort of like, no, this isn't how I planned it, but I just let it go, trusted him, and it is way better. So
Now, how do you? Is it hard to get some of those locations, like, or is it just ask and see what happens? Like, I know you mentioned that woman's house, and you just asked, and you said, "I promise, we won't trash her house," and she let you guys do it. How hard is it to get some of those locations?
it's I've been incredibly lucky with locations. When I first started the pre-production for Kindred Spirits, I was asking around on Facebook if I could film at people's houses. And I actually live in a small town far away from everything. I'm like halfway between Austin and Houston. So most of my crew was going to be in Austin. So I was looking for a house in Austin. And I had a few people say, well, you can use my house. And 3 weeks into conversations, my producer, Michelle, says, uh, what about their homeowners association? Would they allow it? Because she might allow it, but what kind of neighborhood is she? Michelle, what kind of neighborhood is she in? Does she own the house? Does she have a landlord?
Oh, dang.
Let's ask these.
Jeez, all
Those
the
are
things you don't
things-
think about. Yeah.
Those are things I wouldn't have asked either. I would have been
Yeah.
like, let's just do it.
Yeah, let's just shoot.
So I asked her. They were renters. They were not owners, and the landlord was not okay with it. So
Wow.
in a last minute ditch, I found this beautiful house in Round Rock, Texas, which is 30 minutes north of the Austin area. So it's not even in really Austin. And I found a big house. The Airbnb description allowed pets. So I thought, well, she'd allow cats and dogs. Maybe she'd allow a film crew. So reached out to her, and she had a huge backyard. So when I reached out to her, because I had, a problem securing a house, I find just being totally brutally upfront and honest, saying, hey, I'm a small time Texas filmmaker. I'm writing a film. I promise it's not porn. Here's a script if you'd like to read it. And I have a professional film crew. I try to give as much background as I can, my phone number, my email address, and she was like, "Oh, yeah, that's fine."
That's
and
awesome.
a lot of Airbnbs, they'll say, "We do not allow film crews through set." And luckily, she didn't have that, and she was okay with it. And I told her I would give her an IMDb credit, and she would be in the credits of the film. And so, and then being in Texas, I contacted the Texas Film Commission to find a farm that we could shoot at. And it was a really beautiful farm out in Pflugerville, Texas. And the guy was used to film crews and magazine shoots out there. So he was real chill. And he would be like, would you like the tractor? And the kid had this cute little tractor, a vintage tractor. And he's like, I can get the horses in this pen when you go up and pet the horses. And so he was used to it. He was fantastic. And it's only in the film for like 10 seconds, but
Yeah.
it added so much to the film. And then, of course, with the mall, one of my crew members had a contact of the guy who worked in the mall. So he got permission from the mall to let us use the outside of Sears on a Sunday when nothing was going on there, and we could use it for free.
But there's still so much liability to that. So I'm just surprised someone who owns something like a mall, who's probably, that guy has money, he's used to being sued all the time. It's like, to have a bunch of people film on their property for the liability. I'm surprised you got that.
Well, I'm not sure how Vassal, this was our friend, who
He's
works,
just like, yeah, go for
yeah,
it.
he works in the mall, and I said, well, would you like to be an extra? He absolutely loved that. So he, I do remember we never actually go in. It all happens outside.
Right.
But I do remember at one point a security guard is driving around, and I see her get out of the car, and I see her, strutting up, and Anton just drops everything. He's like, I got it. And he goes and he talks to her, and she got in her car and she drove away. So it was really great to have an inside contact working with us, because, he had conversation with the mall manager, but I guess, they don't tell everybody, like this little security guard driver around, didn't get the memo, but luckily Anton, our contact, was an extra, so he was able to tell her, it's okay, I got permission.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's tough too. Like you're trying to find these locations that work for you, but it's always on a budget, and certain places, maybe Texas is better for this, and I think up near us in like Boston area is okay, but like LA, I've heard that like if you just film outside with like zero permission, they have like film cops that will come and take all of your equipment.
That's wild.
Like you can't just film outside of a building. They'll come and take all of your stuff because you have to have permits to be outside filming, like on the beach or near any sort of parking lot. So it's cool that more places are open to it. And I don't know why that is. I don't know if it's because LA is just like so overpopulated with like filmmaking. I'm not sure.
I know. I hear you on that, because there can be a little bit of that in Austin. Not that I filmed in downtown Austin, but when I was making calls and asking people, hey, can we film here? There was a little bit of a, on the other side of the phone. But I was actually working on a production, not mine, a little over a year ago in Columbus, Texas, which is a small historic town. And it's funny because we were literally just walking downtown. Camera guy, the boom mic and sound people and the actors, and they hadn't even told anybody. But you would not believe the amount of people that came out and were like, are you making a movie? Like the Chamber of Commerce people literally walked where we were, and they're like, can we help? Or
people love it. Most people love it.
The guy, there was a guy who came up with the camera. Someone called him. He was from the Banner Press, which covers Columbus, and he said, yeah, someone called me and said there was a film being made here. Can y'all tell me what it's about? I'll put
the whole town probably knew about it.
The whole town. That's why I planned for my first feature. It's going to be filmed in my hometown, because I have a lot of I live in a small town of 4,000 people. And a lot of them know that I'm a filmmaker, and they're like, when are you going to make a film here? And I know I would have that support, both from the Chamber of Commerce, from the police, from just everybody. So the local government. So, yeah. And a lot of people would be willing to help with it. I might get overwhelmed by the amount of help with it. So, but yeah, it awesome. Is great. Filming in small towns are great because they usually have a very enthusiastic, helpful attitude. And so that's definitely why I'm going to film my first feature here in my hometown.
That's a good tip, is like stay out of major cities and bigger areas, because they've like been inundated with questions of like, can we film here? Can we film here? And I saw that once on one of our productions where people were annoyed we were in the area, and like one person actually walked by and they were like, ugh, influencers. And I'm like, what? Influencers don't use camera equipment. They
was that in Boston? I remember.
Yeah, it was in Boston. Yeah. Were you on that shoot?
Yeah.
They were like, influencers. And I'm like, absolutely not. I'm like, influencers don't use all of this stuff. They just use their phone mostly.
Yeah, and then you'll like do it in a small town where that never happens, and everyone is like, oh, what are you doing?
Yeah, they love it. Yeah. They love it. They want to be a part of it. They want to help. They want to take pictures. Mm-hmm. They're excited. It's interesting when you go to bigger areas, people are more annoyed by things. And like small towns, like I grew up in a small town in Maine, and same thing. Like people are pretty chill for the most part. And it's like Smaller towns just seem more like welcoming for anything. Like, oh, that's cool. So and so is making a film.
Yeah. And
Awesome.
it's good for
Versus,
them.
yeah, exactly. It's something cool that's happening in their area.
Yeah. And that, you know, wherever, depends on where that movie goes, they can say such movie was made here.
Yeah, I think it's great. Now, if you had a dream, like your goal and dream in the future, is it like if you could only do one, you could only direct, you could only write, or you could only act? What are you doing? You only get to choose one. You got to answer it, though. Put you on the spot.
I know, because I guess you could say my first love is acting. But another side of me gets real bored with, okay, if I'm looking for roles to audition for, sometimes it's just like, none of these roles interest me. I'm just going to start writing stuff. But I'd have to say, yes, I'd have to say if I could only go with one, it would be directing. Because as a director, I can come across the scripts that I want to work on. And I just get a great deal of satisfaction of bringing a story to life, you know, visualizing it and making it come to life for others. So I don't say I necessarily love writing. I'm compelled to write, but in the process, I hate it. And then when it's finished, it's like, oh yay! And then with acting, I mean, that's my background. I am an actor, but I'm also just kind of choosy about what roles I take on. But there is something about the directing process that I absolutely love, and bringing stuff to life.
I think it's because you're involved with everything. With directing, you're involved with the entire process. With acting, it's, you know, you're just acting and then you have, you know, sit down or whatever. And then writing, you're in the beginning writing and then that's kind of it. But directing throughout the whole thing, you're working on the project.
You're shaping it.
Yeah.
You're shaping the story. You're kind of like, it's like clay. Like the story is clay, and you're like making the pot, and you're like making sure it looks good in the end.
Absolutely. And you are a touch point for so much of the production. So, yeah, everything else said.
Dan, are you gonna make fun of my?
I
thing?
was gonna say Sean gets really.
You don't like my clay thing?
Yeah,
I thought that was
well.
cool.
The last episode,
like...
I was ready to say something. The last episode, though, he went out into the woods, he meditates, he touches trees, and so yeah, when he was shaping the clay in the pot, I was getting excited.
Yeah, I gotta have some of those elements, you know. I gotta talk about the world, and you know.
I love it.
Oh man, I saw that you were gonna make fun of me.
I saw you looking at me too, which was funny. I was like, oh.
I knew that was gonna happen. I could just tell you were about to laugh, so I had to give you the stage to just make fun of me again. Whatever, it's all good. At some point, if you need extras, that's one thing I've always wanted to do is act. So happy to help. I don't know how good I am, but
what's your day rate? Sean?
I think it depends on the role. Like I'm looking for the experience. I think, you know, maybe I have that one role that takes off, and next thing you know, that's all I'm doing.
Brad Pitt. Is that what people are waiting for? Or I mean, I guess not waiting for, because they obviously love to do it as well. But like, it's not.
That happens.
Yeah. Are some of these actors kind of waiting for their, you know, chance to be like, oh, if this film takes off, maybe I'll get a role on another, you know, a bigger film? Or
I've heard different things. You know, I've known a lot of people who've worked as extras and they like it because of the money. And obviously they're talking about bigger productions, bigger than mine for sure.
Yeah.
But some people feel, well, if I just get an extra, someone will see me, and then I'll get auditions in these bigger films. I don't necessarily think that's the case either. What is great about extras work, and it's kind of like with being a production assistant, it gives you the chance to be on set and to sort of observe everything from a non-stressful point, because as an extra, you're sitting at a cafe or you're walking by. And then when you're not filming, you're just standing there and observing everybody. And I do think it gives extras an opportunity to figure out what it is that they want to do. I have a friend who, this production that I was a scriptie for, a friend of mine played an extra. And she was just observing everybody. And she had a great conversation with the assistant director. She's very much an organization go-getter type person. And she really connected with the assistant director. And I think that's more of where she's headed. She would be a great assistant director, a production manager, a scriptie. She probably would have been a better scriptie than I was. But I guess you're just taking notes constantly. I've never been a fast note taker, but I think being an extra is great in that you get to see how people work. You get to see the different kind of jobs from a low key, non-stressful position on set. And same with the reason why I went started working on smaller production as a production assistant. I'm very good at helping out. I'm very much a hands-on kind of person. And with the Western that I worked on, which I became good friends with those filmmakers, I got to the Lorraine Ghost Town Center and it was pouring down raining. They had to completely switch up their shooting schedule to film inside rather than outside because it was pouring down. And the director was trying to set up the crafty table. They were a small production too. It had great locations. I mean, everything looked amazing, but he was trying to set up a crafty table. And I was like, oh my gosh, go be a director. I'll take care of this. And he was just like, thank you. And went and did his thing. So either being a production assistant or an extra is just a great way to be on set, step back a little bit, and just observe people. And but if you want to be an actor and get the bigger roles, I think you need to get the training you need, get the agent you need, and not necessarily go through the extras route. But I mean, being an extra is cool because I have a friend in Canada who did some really great productions. She was in Cinderella Man and was even a featured extra. She was a Hairspray Man of the Year. She did really well as an extra and got
Is it networking too? Because you're meeting a lot of people,
yes,
a lot of different people.
You do meet a lot of people, and it's such a weird thing. It's weird, but then I understand it. You can talk to people. I'll occasionally do reach outs to producers I want to work with, or directors I want to work with, or just higher ups in the industry. And some of them respond, some of them don't. And some of them will accept me on social media, and some of them haven't. And but there's something about when you're on set with that person and they're with you in the flesh and they get to see you work, then it's like, I got something for you, or I might have something for you.
Definitely.
And then it's just that was the case this past weekend. There were several people there that I have known about for a long time. I've been friends with on social media that hadn't met in person. And it's like, once we're actually there together and we're working together, then it's like, I think I may have something for you, or, let's get her on this next project. And it's that set magic that happens when you're with people, working with them.
Yeah, the network thing's big. Yeah, I didn't even think about that. Like, as an extra, you basically get to see everything and not have too big of a role that you have to be like so focused on what you're doing, and you get to learn all these things. It's like film school, basically.
It is. It's and that's why I say, never look down on extra work. It's a great opportunity, and it pays, especially with those bigger productions.
So Kindred Spirits is out already?
It is.
Can it be
on YouTube?
Okay. YouTube, cool. And then the other one you're working on currently, when does that come out?
We have a goal to have editing finished by the 31st of this month. And then the goal is to have a premiere in July in Houston. And then we're going to enter it into some film festivals, but we want to actually enter it in film festivals that don't have a premiere status requirement. We just want to release it for for the public because I want some attention on my group of friends. I filmed it with Spectrum Fusion Studios, and they're a group of friends of mine. They're with a nonprofit called Spectrum Fusion, and they're all adults on the autism spectrum who work in film and media.
Oh, that's super cool. So, and that's in Austin? Houston. Awesome. That's so cool. And so have they done a bunch of different projects like that
They've done
as
a
well?
lot of ads for people. They've done a few short promotional skits. This was their first short film. But I don't think it's going to be their last because they're just wonderful. And they J&J Ranch Productions. They just did a film called Dear Cancer with J&J Ranch Productions, and so they're starting to get busy.
That's awesome. And what's next after this one comes out? Is it the feature?
Well, I don't know. I also wanted to do a World War II short film as sort of a proof of concept. But I may just skip that to go straight on to the feature. Because
Do you need a World War II plane? Because I know somebody that has one.
We got to get Sean ready
No,
to act.
I'm serious. I have somebody that owns a World War II Jeep that's functional and a World War II plane. They're both up here. It's in New Hampshire. But he might have somebody fly. He probably wouldn't fly it all the way down to Texas, but he might have somebody fly it. Yeah, he flies. So he's a retired Army helicopter pilot. Yeah, and it's pretty incredible. He has a hangar down the street from here, and my son loves it. It's my wife's stepdad, so he's done all kinds of crazy flying stuff, and he bought this plane a while ago, and it's a real World War II plane, and it's crazy looking, and it's very small. But if you do ever, yeah, it's like fabric wings. He's like, yeah, this is what it was like. I'm like, I'm going to stay on the ground for this one. Because...
Yeah, remember Sean last time was like, hey, do you want to go up in this plane and we can shoot some footage if you want to fly in it? I was like, we'll strap some GoPros to this thing.
Yeah.
I'm not getting in.
I'm not getting, I've flown on like small Cessnas and it's okay, but the single prop thing, it's a little scary. It's like, that's it? That's all we have?
That's it.
Like, what happens if that doesn't work? Which happens. But yeah, if you need that, I know somebody.
Thank you. It's always good to know who has what, because I wanted
See,
to.
we're networking right now, guys.
Yeah, we're networking.
Exactly. I actually know a group of reenactors who were going to be in this, and he has the head honcho of the group who would play a character in it. He not only does he have the costumes and the weapons, because they're not real, but they're real looking. He also has the history and the knowledge, and he's read the script, and I was like, does anything sound not right? And he goes, well, you're mixing a little of World War I with World War II, so say this instead of that. And so I still really want to do it. I'm not saying it's completely off the table. It's just at this point, the people that I want to work with, studio and the producer, they have a few features premiering right now. It's one side of me is like, are they really interested in doing a short film that it's just going to go to film festivals, or should I hit them with a feature film that could possibly, be shown in a bunch of theaters? So.
And is this in Texas? Would this be also in Texas? How long does something like that, so like for that script, how long do you think that would take to film?
With it all being here in town, maybe a day. Well, I shouldn't say that. Maybe production would also cover another town an hour away, a few days over there. I'm thinking it would. It's never as simple as you think. I'm thinking that's like a not necessarily Hallmark length, because I think they film in 2 weeks. This would probably be more of a 4, 5, 6 week, possibly.
Okay. Yeah, so 4 or 5 weeks of filming.
Yeah.
Like every day.
Yeah. Well,
Wow.
probably have to give people a weekend off.
Yeah. That's incredible that like I know it takes a long time, but when you look at it, you're like, okay, a short film, and it's like, okay, this is gonna take 4 to 5 weeks of filming. But it makes sense to get like the right scenes. The reason I do ask is because I love all sorts of different projects and we have all of the equipment. Not saying we would be the right fit for it, but you never know. You could pass the scripts and we could talk about it. But 4 or 5 weeks might be a lot to have a crew from up north all the way down that way.
Now, were you asking about the feature or the short film?
I think the short film.
Oh, okay. So, okay, totally different. I thought you were asking about the feature. The short film would take, it's a 10-pager, 3 days, possibly 4. Way
But
more
once
manageable.
again, we have the stuff. I mean, I don't know if we're the right fit, but like we're always looking to get into new stuff, and I've always had interest in filming.
I think Sean's really trying to act, and I think he's trying to become an actor.
I would be an extra, so then I could learn some stuff. I'll come down, but we would. Yeah, we're always open for like new opportunities and new projects. So, I mean, like I said, if we're not the fit, that's totally fine. But you can always pass us over the script. We could show you some of the things we've done. And
well, when it comes to the feature, I'm gonna need all hands on deck. So, any help I can get would be great. Of course, paid. That we're gonna do things right. I'm totally adamant about that because I still know people filming feature-length films without paying cast or crew. And it's just like, can't do that. It's just,
yeah, I get it though. Like, yeah, if you can push through it and it's like this incredible project, but like anything, like we've done some free work too. It's hard because at the end of the day, everybody has to pay some sort of bills. Like, it's not just like we're trying to make a ton of money. It's like, oh, I've got to pay my rent or I have to pay my mortgage or whatever that is. So I get that. And is the full length, is that the World War II one?
No,
or is that the short film?
Is actually the World War II film, and the feature length is modern day.
Oh, cool. And in Texas as well. Cool. Well, either way, I mean, we have some pretty cool equipment. So, yeah, we have a couple red cameras and all the cinema lenses already and lighting. And
if I want to film something up in the Boston area, I mean, I'm
going to say,
you guys,
Yeah. Yeah, you should write something or even up. I mean, right now we have a studio in New Hampshire, which is an hour north of Boston. There's like a lot of rural type style. It's not like Texas rural, but it has that same like vibe of like small town in New Hampshire and Maine. So always an option. We would be down to film something up here.
That's where Hallmark films everything. It's in those,
really
those very picture. Oh, you don't know the joke about it?
No. I live a Hallmark life, I guess.
I mean, yes, the stressed, successful executive at this big company has to go home for her, her picturesque home for Christmas and save the local cafe or the Christmas parade. And it's just this gorgeous, location in like a historic small town in New Hampshire or Vermont. Yeah.
Yeah, Vermont's
and then she
nice
meets
too.
up with her hot ex-boyfriend who just happens to still not be married. And
that's how it is up here. I mean, just how it is. Just a lot of those beautiful locations, beautiful people.
Beautiful locations.
Yeah, all we need is the script. Just bring it up. Let's go.
Yes. So, but my cousin and I were big Hallmark fans, but we still joke too about the whole high paid, stressed, successful executive who comes to her very beautiful, picturesque hometown.
Well, I get that. It is beautiful up here. I mean, there's some beautiful places in Texas and other places in the South too. So maybe Hallmark will move some stuff down to Texas. I don't know. Well, this has been awesome. We appreciate you coming on.
Oh, thank you so much. I've enjoyed talking to you two.
Yeah, where can people find you if they want to reach out for scripting or if they want to watch any of your films? What's the best place to find you?
Awesome. Well, you can find me on Facebook. My handle it's my last name, first name, which I have a weird last name, Giuffré, Giuffre, and then Emily, Emily. Thank goodness I have an easy first name. And then Kindred Spirits is on YouTube. If you search Kindred Spirits award-winning short film, you'll see it. And my channel is just Emily Giuffré Film.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll link everything in the bottom of this description so people can find it easily. Yeah.
Thanks. I
This
really
was awesome.
appreciate y'all. It's been great. I love talking shop and love hearing other people's stories as well. So this has been awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. That's the pod.